Greetings and welcome to episode 2 of Free Lunch, American Adam Smith. Now, when Reagan ran for president, he famously asked the people, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" And the voters rewarded him with 2 terms. And the voters didn't just show their disapproval of an unpopular president, but granted Reagan and his party a mandate to reconsider the relationship between the government and the economic system. Middle class and wealthy owners agreed that the economy was stagnant because of government interference with the invisible hand of the market. So the solution was to get government out of the way. Let the businesses operate without public oversight in the forms of government programs and regulations. Reagan's slogan was, "Government is the problem, not the solution." So now 3 decades later, we can ask the same question. Are we better off now than we were a generation ago? At first glance, the answer is a resounding yes. Since the 1980, the economy has more than doubled. More than half the wealth created in the United States was created in the past 25 years. For each dollar generated in 1980, we have generated $1.68 in 2006. At the same time, the costs of many goods have fallen and the quality has improved. For example, the cost of colored TVs has fallen by 75% of the price, for example. Gas costs today are about the same as 1980 once you index for inflation. Computers are cheaper, flights are cheaper. Most people's savings are no longer in banks, but in the stock market, whose value has risen over 5 times since 1980. 70% of Americans own their homes. This used to be the case until a couple of months ago. Yet despite all of this, most Americans would say that they're not better off than they were 3 years ago. The above-mentioned statistics, which you'll find all the time in the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, Fox News, Mad Money, they hide an awful truth. The benefits flow overwhelmingly to those at the top of the economic pyramid. And there's very few people that draw attention to this, mainly people like Paul Krugman, for example. Now, the base of that pyramid has and Warren Buffett. Now, the base of that pyramid has weakened greatly as average incomes have shrunk and more risks were forced upon them by government policies which aid those at the top. So for the bottom 90% of Americans, average real income has fallen from $31,000 in 1973 to $30,000 in 2000. So even with 3 decades of incredible economic growth, the people at the bottom have had to get by with $11 less a week. So where did all the money go? Well, part of it went to corporate profits, which have been growing faster than wages. And the portion that went to individuals as wages, dividends, etc., it went to the top of the pyramid. Of each dollar people earned in 2005, the top 10% got 48 cents of that dollar. This was the greatest share of the income pie since 1929, just before the Great Depression. Within that top 10%, those who made more than $100,000, their gains were concentrated at the top. Most of the increase actually went to the top half of 1%, namely those who made at least $1.7 million that year. Now, most Americans would say that, these profits are due to hard work and capitalism. But they ignore that such efforts don't take place in a vacuum. They're also the products of government rules. Government can and does take from some and give to others. One example is taxing adults so that kids can be educated. Now, even when government does not touch money, it can transfer huge transfers of wealth in the economy. Consider the Big Four commercial sports leagues. Now, they're exempted from the laws of competition, allowing them to charge higher prices than they would in a free market. Movie theaters don't enjoy such protection. Government also just gives away money to businesses outright. Some are funneled through subsidies. Government also gives away public assets like land or minerals for a lot less than their value on the fair market. Now, government can also use its eminent domain power to seize private property and give land to someone like George W. Bush, thereby making him wealthy in the process. This is a later chapter as well. Now, rewriting these rules to favor those at the top of the pyramid has been done in the name of deregulation. And under this banner, the government has enacted new rules which have created rigged markets, thereby weakening consumer protection and weakening the free market itself. Most people don't know that we don't live in a laissez-faire economy. We have rules, and these rules in the past 3 decades have been rewritten at most Americans' expense by the wealthy and their corporations. Why do we need rules? Well, rules define a civilization. In history, strength was made, whoever had the strength made the rules. But with the Enlightenment and the spread of literacy, people have created rules to benefit the common man. This is why America was such a radical experiment in comparison to the European countries where aristocracies ruled the land. In America, the base of influence has contracted as we've entered the 21st century. And this is partly because of the campaign finance system, which transfers power to those who donate. To succeed in the long run, rules have to have a moral and practical basis as well as the support of the people. And the Founding Fathers provided for this through their checks and balances system. But the rules we put in place during the 5 decades following the Great Depression, they've mirrored that until Reagan came into power. Starting with the New Deal in 1933 and with the bipartisan consensus after World War II, our leaders of both parties worked to strengthen the middle class. The government invested in its people through the GI Bill and made college tuition so low that anyone with ambition could get a degree. Government invested in basic sciences, public health, infrastructure, allowed unions to negotiate for higher wages, instituted consumer and environmental protections. In the past 30 years, government has turned against such policies and tilted the playing field in favor of the rich and politically connected. The pursuit of financial zeros has in turn produced a moral breakdown at the top of our society. We see how presidents of companies apologize for laying off workers only to boast of the profits obtained from such firings. You mentioned Ken Lay of Enron, Bernie Ebbers of WorldCom, Dennis Kozlowski of Tyco. These are just the executives who were prosecuted. One of the new rules was to make sure that there were fewer cops on the Wall Street beat. Steve Jobs of Apple was given millions in stock options at a board of directors meeting that never took place. Most people, when you're overpaid by a clerk, you go back into the store and you return the excess change. Now, to date, no charges were brought against Jobs, and the people on that board included Al Gore. But keep in mind, Jobs isn't alone in the stock option scandals. Many executives fabricate records, and stock option thieves have a great friend, or had a great friend in the White House. Any prosecutors who dared to go after these people were fired. Just Google, what's his name? Alberto Gonzalez, and the Karl Rove, Alberto Gonzalez, and the prosecutor scandal. New rules enable executive pay schemes that reward those who mismanage companies to become wealthy while destroying wealth for others. Look up golden parachutes and what that happens. Now, consider the money lending business also. Usury laws used to be set up to protect consumers against rapacious lenders until 1978, when a Supreme Court decision struck them down. Now, today in California, you can see a commercial where Gary Coleman urges people to borrow money at a 99% interest rate. These are the types of rules that allow the Goldman Sachs, the Lehman Brothers, the Citibanks of the world to exploit the poor and the uninformed. What's the result? Well, in the last 25 years, 1 in 7 American families has sought refuge in bankruptcy court. Today's bankruptcy laws, as written by the credit card lenders, prevent the people from enjoying the protections constitutional provisions on bankruptcy were designed to offer. This was actually the last act of the Republican majority just before the 2006 Congress came in play. This was when Bill Frist was still a majority leader. This was the agenda item for the Republican Party. Now, in a 2000 fundraiser, George W. Bush referred to his white tie audience at the Waldorf Astoria as the haves and the have-mores. He said, "Some people call you the elite. I call you my base." By 2007, even the White House finally acknowledged that the gap between the rich and the poor was a real concern. So why are the rich getting richer? Because they have captured government, which is the single biggest piece of our economy. And the rules they've written benefit them.